This is the approach supported by the governor and by the House of Representatives, who passed this by a supermajority of 75 votes. And if Tony Barclay had been here, it had been 76 votes. It's also supported by a wide variety of policy organizations like PAR, like Cable, like LABI, like the Family Foreman, Americans for Prosperity, the Pelican Institute. That's a majority of policy organizations. But we have a window of opportunity right in front of us right now. The best time to ask voters to ratify or reject a constitutional framework is in the election during which the most voters will be there, and that is the presidential ballot. So I put a challenge in front of the legislature. And really, this is aimed at the Senate, who has, despite overwhelming support in the House, refused to give the convention the courtesy of an open debate. And most everybody agrees with the solution. The governor, the House, policy organizations, and much of the public. And in my private conversations, most senators are even for it.
Do you feel like Governor Landry is fully behind your plan for amending the state constitution?
If you said, do I think that Governor Landry is fully behind?
Yes.
And you stuck an adjective in there, I'm not sure I could ever tell you that. He has told me many times that he understands the depth of this problem. This is not a Band-Aid that we can put on it. We've got to do something transformational. He's never said, be quiet. And I would imagine I give people that opportunity. Please.
Megan Friedman with The Advocate. I was wondering if you think the sales tax exemption on food, medicine, and utilities should stay in the Constitution?
Generally speaking, policy should not be in the Constitution. Everybody wants to leave their portion in the Constitution. I like what the President of the Senate said not too long ago. He says, everybody's for change as long as it doesn't make any difference. Secretary Richard Nelson is trying to figure a way out how we can eliminate the income tax. And when you eliminate one revenue stream, you've got to have another to replace it, I believe is your question. And the problem is that we can't look holistically at our revenue stream. We have to look at it one piece at a time. And we can't look at the budget process. You see, you don't always have to replace the revenue stream if you can cut costs. So we have a budget that's basically started over every year. This is what I got last year. How much can I get this year? We have agencies that spend money before year end, because if they don't spend it, it'll come out of their budget next year. So it's not just replace one revenue stream with another. Why don't we look at reducing costs, especially since we haven't reviewed our total budget in my lifetime.
And on that, so this would essentially open up some of those constitutionally protected, like K through 12, LDH.
Everything that's in the Constitution, which is policy, should be moved over into statute and be available for the legislature to look at through careful evaluation and debate. Right now, they have to go and take one specific item and go to the people for an amendment to get the authority to look at it. All we're saying is, and I understand, people in Louisiana 50 years ago didn't trust our legislature at all. But we didn't have the internet, we didn't have social media. Today, if the speaker sneezes, before he gets the handkerchief to his nose, it's on the internet. It's not like they're going to go over there and do things, drastic things that we don't have any idea about. And they're very responsive to the voters. We have the most active voters in Louisiana. Politics is a sport in Louisiana. Everybody's engaged in it.
Examples, maybe any policies that you believe need to be taken out?
You want some conflict, don't you?
I just want some facts.
Three policies that I think should be taken out. I'll give you a good example. The most controversial. Let's talk about homestead exemptions. It's in the Constitution. I believe in homestead exemptions. I don't believe it ought to be in the Constitution for this purpose. Suppose a Vols parish wants to pass a bond issue. With the exemptions that exist there now, and they pass a bond issue, the Dairy Queen, the John Deere dealership, 2 lawyers and 2 doctors are going to pay taxes because everybody else is exempt. How about this? If it were law and our legislature said we will, from here on out, allow for local option of homestead exemptions, then the Vols Parish could say, you know, we really want this. Let's change our exemption process. And they do it. I don't believe we ought to take away the homestead exemption. I believe it ought to be policy. There are a lot of things that shouldn't be taken away. For example, when we were saying retirement funds. Who in the world is going to pass a law to take somebody's retirement money? It's ridiculous. But it doesn't need to be in the Constitution. It needs to be statute. Because when you start leaving one thing that's policy in the Constitution, everybody else is going to say you too. But you got to trust your fellow man, especially if you get elected, or your fellow lady. You ought to trust them to have sense, and we're going to be involved in all this. You asked for 3. I gave you the controversial. Let's talk about civil service. It's a policy. It really shouldn't be in the Constitution. It's necessary. Everybody understands. There's no way in the world you want to do. In fact, I know a lot of legislatures, and they will not get rid of their staff. Because when they get there, they lay it around and say, this is what you do. But the fact of the matter is, civil service was started back when that was a policy where I'm going to run for office. If I get elected, I'm going to hire you as my aide. And so we have people with great qualifications and good experience losing their job because their guy didn't win. So civil service works, but it can be modified. If you make more than $100,000 a year, then you really need civil service. You're a qualified, talented labor. You're not, you're going to do your job. You don't need to be protected by it. It's just a policy that needs to be in statute. I don't think it ought to be eliminated. Is that enough conflict for you?